see. Is it on? Is it streaming? Huh. Interesting. Not sure why. Making sure that you can see and or hear me.
My name is Jordan, and as a growth partner.
Okay. Okay, cool. I was wondering if this is working or not. Okay, cool. Today's topic, we're going to be talking about how to shift and turn your letdowns into level ups. I am super excited to talk about this because this one is near and dear to my heart, and I wanted to share some personal insights on how do you shift your perspective from, being let down or disappointed or feeling, dissatisfied with life. And a lot of times when we are experiencing life events, we have a tendency to label things, right? And we label life events either in favor of something that we desire or not in favor of that, right? And so our perceptions and how we think and how we feel and the meanings that we give things is usually where our power lies, right? So where our power lies, and that's really the key opportunity, really the secret pillar, if you will, that will help you shift from your letdown to your level up, right? So if you are experiencing disappointment, if you're experiencing dissatisfaction in your life, then this is usually an opportunity for more. So first of all, I wanted to share like a personal experience. If you're joining me live, feel free to say hi in the chat. But I had recently experienced a disappointment literally just yesterday, but because I've been programming myself for a very long time, I immediately went into the mode of, okay, how is this serving me? So long story short, I spent some money to get my car fixed or whatever, and I was like, yesterday I went to the Atlanta Caribbean Carnival, right? So Caribbean Carnival is going on in Atlanta this Memorial Day weekend. And so I was having a blast or whatever. I was like, I'm just going to go for, an hour or so. And then after that, I'm going to go and get my emissions done, to get my tags done, because I just spent all this money so that my check engine light wouldn't come on and I can get my car fixed and get my tags and stuff like that, right? And so as soon as I leave the Caribbean Carnival, right, I'm just having a blast. Life is good. My check engine light comes back on because I'm leaving the carnival so I can go to get my emissions done, right? And I'm like, dang, I just spent all this money to get my car fixed, so that would be a problem, so I could just go get my tags and stuff like that. So mind you, I'm sitting here riding around with my tag expired or whatever, and so I'm trying to get my tag done or whatever. I'm like, okay, what is this here for? My immediate response to that event was like, okay, this is here for me, right? Because I was like, okay, I could take this as a disappointment thing, or I'm angry, I just spent all this money. The guy told me that this is supposed to help me fix my car, and by getting that, I can get my car tagged. Team already tunes in and taps me into moving into what this disappointment and this dissatisfaction that I'm experiencing, right, is an opportunity for me to see how this is serving me, right? And so immediately what I did in that moment was to give it a meaning that this is here for me, right? So this thing that's happening in my life right now that I don't want to be happening is actually happening for me. It's not happening to me, right? And so immediately in that moment, welcome Miss Sati. Are you a Mr. I can't remember. Feel free. Let me see what you're saying. I'm ready to try and program myself and turning into an opportunity, but I am so hurt right now. frustrated that I am struggling with anger and deep sadness when stepping in front of it. Exactly, right? And that's really key. I'm glad that you have that self-awareness, right? So when you're talking about like being hurt or disappointed by something, in that sense situation, it was sort of like a small thing. It wasn't like someone, let me down. I still had to process my emotions. So a lot of the tips that I'm going to share with you is not necessarily so that you can bypass your human emotions. I want to encourage you to exactly like feel the hurt, feel the pain, feel the anger. Like you can't really move into this next phase that I'm going to be sharing with you and reframing unless you allow yourself to feel what you're experiencing, right? And so that was that moment too where I felt sad. Like I was sitting in my car in front of Kroger because I went to go get something to drink because it was like super hot. It's like 80, 90 degrees outside. I'm like sweating bullets from just dancing in the sun at Caribbean Carnival, And I'm so like, okay, fine. I'm just going to go inside. Let me cool off. Let me get something to drink. And like, all is well. This is happening for me, right? And then also I had to remember that the guy who just fixed my car also told me, if something happens, just let me know and we'll take care of it. So I'm not really worried about it. So, but in that moment I was satisfactions as a moment of a lesson, right? When we start to see these things in our lives as lessons rather than as, things that shouldn't be happening to us. When we look at these things as though we're victims, as though we're, at effect to what's happening versus us being the divine creators of our reality, because we are the divine creators of our reality, we start to move into an expanded version of ourselves. But if we continually see ourselves as victims, or we continually see that, the things that really, when you look at the term lesson, right? It's really to collect and gather, right? So what are we collecting and gather? And I love to look at it in this way because you think of it as you're collecting the fragments of your being into the wholeness of who you truly are, into the wholeness of your true self, right? So you're a divine being having this human experience, and we come on this planet and we forget who we truly are, right? We forget that we're divine. We forget that we have power, the power that, animates the stars and hangs the stars in the heavens and, allows the earth to, rotate and, beams the sun down and all this stuff, that we have that same power that's we can reframe these in our minds, right? And so we can start to see lessons as gifts in disguise, right? A point of expansion and growth, an opportunity to move into greater states of self-awareness. Now, this is not to say that you're going to ignore your emotions and ignore how you're feeling. Feel the emotion, feel sad, feel the disappointment, feel the letdown, right? Allow yourself to feel, feeling like, disappointment or anger or whatever emotion arises. But even though you're allowing yourself to feel the emotion, what you're not going to do is move into labeling the situation, right? This is where your power comes in. Because right at the top of the talk, I was saying that the meaning, your power lies in the meaning that you give things. is here to teach me, right? What is in this for me? Because I know this is happening for me, not to me, right? So if you know that this is happening for you and not to you, then what to learn something point of expansion and growth, right? And another thing that I wanted to talk about in this point of expansion is that it moves you into a greater self-awareness because it allows you to move into a greater state of detachment, right? And why do we want to even be in a greater state of detachment, right? Because a lot of times we think, oh, detachment usually has a negative connotation that you're relinquishing your humanity altogether and you're not going to do or take responsibility for your life. And that's not what I mean by detachment. When I'm talking about detachment, I mean you're not attached to the human stuff to the point where you're letting it bring you out of your peace, where you're letting it bring you out of your joy, where you're letting it bring you out of your state of love and wholeness and well-being. Yes, feel the emotions, right? But then as you allow that emotion to be there, right, to feel it, to allow yourself to scream, to write in the pillow or let it out, then you then reframe it and say, okay, so what is this here for me, right? How can I use this as a point of growth and expansion, right? And so in that moment of me, the meaning that I gave it, right? Because I was like, the meaning that I gave yesterday's event of me not getting my tags yet. I was like, okay, well, this is a point of me not driving around. I kind of wanted to go home and opportunity to do that rather than drive around or whatever. And so I used it as that, like, I reframed the whole thing, like, okay, well, I know that this is happening for me. So in this moment, I'm going to say that this point of expansion, this is a point of me being like, oh, okay, well, clearly I don't need to be driving around right now because technically laws, you can't drive without certain things in place. So I'm going to use this as an opportunity. You, if this resonates, you know what I mean? And have you ever found yourself, reframing? And I was trying to think of another situation, but that was the most like recent frequent disappointment. I remember also in like like recently, maybe like a few months ago, actually, like late last year, like going out on a date with someone or whatever, and just being open to exploring new people, not with any agenda to be like, oh, you're going to be the one, but there's also like, going out on a few dates with different people and meeting people and just feeling that sort of letdown moment, like this isn't my person, or like being disappointed with the lack of connection or lack of something, right? And in that moment, I'm like, well, no, this is a point of expansion. More specifically, I remember last year I had connected with a person who I thought was really nice, but it ended up not working out, right? Because of various different things. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to see this as a point of growth and point of expansion, right? So this person that I was seeing or whatever was a really nice person, and but they ended up just not being a good fit and just sort of like slowly left my life. And in that moment, I felt like very like heartbroken and sad, and I allowed myself to feel those feelings. But what it taught me, right, the lesson that I learned was, one, I was too attached to certain old energies in me that was coming up person to make me feel whole, right? Or I need this person to make me feel whatever, right? In that moment of me feeling disappointment that it didn't work out with this person, right? I allowed myself to feel like feelings, but then when I reframed it, right, and moved into this energy of how can I use this as a point of growth and expansion, in that moment I was like, oh, well, this is showing me that, one, I'm too attached to the outcome. I'm too attached up is remembering who you are. So remember that when you remember, the etymology is to keep or bear something or someone in mind, or preserve the unforgotten, is to bring together, bring together the member, your various pieces into the wholeness of who you truly are, right? And it's really powerful when you think about that. I'm remembering who I truly am. So the various pieces of me are my members, right? The members of my aspect, the members of my psyche, the gods and goddesses within me, right? The codes to my DNA. I'm activating that by remembering, bringing back into wholeness the truth of who I am. So in that moment when I was experiencing the letdown and of the relationship not going in the way that I wanted to, I was able to then expand into my wholeness and be like, oh, I'm divine. I'm love already. I'm not, there's nothing wrong. I'm not broken. I don't need to be fixed, right? I don't, that person isn't wrong. Like, it just wasn't a good fit, right? And we're still whole and we're still divine and we're still love, right? Everything that I'm seeking in this partner is actually within me. Not to say that you shouldn't have partners or nothing like that. I'm not saying that. But it's like when you move into your wholeness and prime example, I started attracting more people who were in alignment with who I truly am, right? Started attracting, not to say that I was actively dating, but when I started meeting people, I started attracting people who were in a healthier state of being and they operate in their wholeness, right? And so that relationship taught me the different pieces, the different members of myself that I was letting go, the different members of my psyche, the different members of my goddess that I was relinquishing and that I needed to collect and recollect so I really some powerful and potent stuff when you really start to see how powerful you truly are and the meaning that you give things, right? So when you give things a meaning that is in service of your divinity, of who you truly are, and you bring back these different aspects of yourself. And what do I mean by remember and the various pieces? When I'm talking about remembering the different aspects of yourself, you have to remember that if you're a divine being having this human experience and you have these different fragments of you, these different fractals, even of your own consciousness, even of who you truly are, right? And so operating in your sovereignty is moving you into a state of recognizing that you are, one of the reasons why I call you guys Mosaic Souls, is that you're multi-dimensional, right? And so at any given one point, right, you're experiencing different aspects of yourself, right? And so in the experiencing of different aspects of yourself, right, you start to move into the remembrance of your totality, right? And so it's like, even if you just think of in our human experience, we usually only experience like certain moods or certain frequencies, usually peace, love, joy, and then the whole other gamut of human emotions that we experience, right? And another aspect of recognizing this too, when you allow yourself to feel those deep emotions, is that you can give yourself, you can be the wholeness and the spaciousness in which to feel these deep, darker emotions. Darker, they're not bad, but like these denser frequencies, right? And so when you step into your wholeness, you're recognizing that, yes, this energy of sadness, yes, this energy of disappointment, yes, this energy of letdown is, I am so whole and so divine and so loved and so, complete within my completeness that I'm allowing myself to feel these denser frequency of emotions. I'm so loved that I am pretending to be not love, right? I'm so whole that I'm pretending to not be whole. I'm pretending to not be divine, right? I'm so loved, if that makes sense. I'm just flipping it on its head. It's a different way of looking at it. That you're so divine, you're so loved that you have the power to pretend that you aren't. You're so abundant to have the power to pretend that you are not abundant. Innately, these are your divine birthrights. Innately, these are who you truly are, right? Peace, these things that we're chasing outside of ourselves, these are innately your essence, your qualities, right? That is inbuilt within your DNA, right? And so when you're remembering who you truly are, right? When you are moving into the remembrance of who you truly are, you are then collecting these various pieces of yourself so that you move back into the totality of who you truly are, and such that these aspects of you allow you to move and operate into your divinity at a higher frequency. And so you're no longer being the victim. You're no longer being at effect saying, oh, this is happening to me. Now I gotta do it. Da, 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 da. No, you're, oh, this is happening for me. What meaning am I going to give this now so that it can play out? Another aspect of this is recognizing that the meaning that you give this life event is what is going to cause it to play out in either towards your desire or away from your desire, right? So even if you're experiencing the disappointment, even if you're experiencing the thing, if I gave that experience with, you know, going out on a date with that person or dating that person and being like, oh, all men are shit, I'm never going to find the love of my life or whatever, right? If I gave it that meaning, then I would continue to attract people who were not in alignment with my energy, right? But because I didn't give it that meaning, and I was like, oh, this is here to show me different aspects. Also, it showed me more of what I do want and more of what I don't want in a partner, right? That it was a whole bunch of other things that I learned from that, just besides the, oh, this is showing me the different parts of me that I'm forgetting, right? It also showed me, oh, what are the things that I do value in a relationship? What are the things that I don't value? It helped me to expand and get more clear on how I want to move forward in attracting that type of energy as well. So as you're collecting these different aspects of yourself, you're coming into the remembrance, the totality of who you truly are. Let me see what you're saying. When you keep getting let down constantly at a frequent rate and keep reprogramming it, but can't seem to shake the deep pain, what's the next step? Divinity seems to want to be alone for life. No. Yeah, no. So it's like, that's the power that you're giving. Let me reread that. Keep reprogramming it. Yeah, so when you say you can't seem to shake the deep pain and you're reprogramming it, let me see. Yeah, it sounds like Sati, that you're in a loop, right? It sounds like you're in a loop, right? And so the best thing I think in those moments, in those instances, right, is to allow yourself to take a step back from it, right? Especially when it's something that you find yourself in a cycle. And I know what that feels like, because I know when you are in a cycle, it feels like, God, I don't know when I'm going to get out of this, right? Whether it's a cycle of abuse, or if it's a cycle of, you know, being in unhealthy relationships, or it's a cycle of, you know, unhealthy eating, or, you know, whatever the thing is that you're feeling that frequency of, right? Frequency of being let down constantly, right? The best thing that you can do is to give yourself spaciousness to feel what you're feeling, right? Allow yourself to feel, but then give yourself spaciousness enough to be like, okay, this is here for me, right? How can I see the gold in the shit, right? How can I see the rainbow, right? The pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. How can I mine this for gold, right? How can I mine this for gold? And another thing that you can do is to just shift your energy altogether, especially depending on how dense the frequency is, you know, being able to process your emotions. It depends on how deep dense the frequency is when you're experiencing your emotions, right? The next step out of moving out of that denser energy is to, because usually an emotion has a wax and a wane period, right? So when you think of an emotion, it has this sort of like sine wave kind of energy where it's like super intense, and then after you allow the emotion to be, it sort of subsides and waves. So when you're in that lower aspect, that valley of the emotion, allowing yourself to move back into a state of detachment, if you will, and being able, not sort of piece of advice, is allow yourself to step back and see how you are attached to whatever it is that you want to be playing out. Because the biggest piece that I wanted to share is that, you know, when you look at these states of being attached, right, to things, you recognize that when you're attached to something and you're holding on to dear life, it's sort of like that analogy of you pet the puppy to death, right? So you're so much in this cycle of whatever it is that's creating the disappointment that you are unconsciously re-looping it back over and over and over. And so your energy is kind of stuck in this like a fan that's really, you can't, the fan is broken, and even though you turned it off, it keeps going around and around and around, right? And so what you want to do is that you flip the fan off, and then you let it sort of slow down on its own, right? And how you do that is to detach yourself from it in a sense of, this is, if you can't get to the place of this is happening for me, or what is a point of expansion, allowing yourself to be like, okay, I'm just going to move, instead of focusing on the red dot, I'm going to just move over here to this whole other, white space or whatever, right? And so instead of focusing on this red dot or elephant in the room, allow yourself, shift your focus into a different place. And then as that energy subsides, then when you can return to it from a place of not being charged, then you can then sort of destruct it and ask your higher self, close your eyes, what is this here for me? How is this here for me? What am I here to learn from this? What is this? What am I here to, how am I here to expand? And usually it's a sign of some form of attachment. Usually a lot of times when we're wanting to manifest something and it's not manifesting, is because we're so attached to what we desire, but we've been pulsing out the opposite of what we desire so much that this cycle of disappointment keeps happening over and over and over. So we're so attached to the outcome. It has to look this way, or it has to be this way, or it was supposed to, why didn't it happen this way? And so we don't know that we're unconsciously attached to something, and that unconscious attachment actually creates the cycle of you not getting what you want. So it's really powerful for you to step into a state of detachment, because when you're in a state of detachment, it's already done. You don't have to worry about, you're whole, you're divine, you're God incarnate. What is there? Nothing's missing. Everything that you want is already here, right? So that parallel version of you that has everything that you want, that has the partner, that has the house, or that has the car, or that has the whatever it is that you're looking to manifest, that version of you already exists, that has the health and well-being. That version of you already exists, right? But when you're in a state of attachment, you're in a state of it's not here yet, right? So when you're in a state of it's not here yet, how can you allow it? You're not a vibrational match to what you desire. You see what I'm saying? Let me know if that makes sense. It's more like I'm mining it for gold, but it's like my body doesn't believe the reprogramming I'm telling it. I really appreciate all your advice. Oh, you're so welcome. Yeah. So I love that. That's very, very, very potent, right? And this is the piece that I've been studying too, more as a coach and expanding into understanding just trauma, right? And a lot of times when the mind is on board, right? Let's say the mind can mine it for gold, and maybe like in that instance, for instance, going back to my example of feeling disappointment in a relationship that didn't go the way that I thought it should go, right? Mining it for gold, right? Was sort of the examples that I shared with you, right? But a lot of times, let's say that in an experience, I feel my body feels unsafe, right? So let's say I go out on a date with a new person, and immediately I feel like distrust or dissafe, or something to the extent where I don't feel like I can be whole or myself or whatever the experience is. A lot of times it takes, not only just shadow work and mental awareness, but body movement, in the sense that when you're doing, let's say yoga, for instance, that's one of the modalities that I use a lot, is you're recognizing what is coming up within you. So when you're moving the body, right? And because the emotions, when the body isn't coming online, when the body isn't tapping into your divinity, tapping into your wholeness, even though your mind is saying, I'm divine, I'm whole, everything that I want is here, your body is like, yeah, right? How do you get your body online is basically the question that you're asking. And I love that question. And a lot of it has to do with taking different action in alignment with experiencing the trauma. So how I want to state this is, a lot of times when we've experienced trauma, or just sort of a body or chemical reaction within the body, right, is we have that program going, that cycle going, right? And so what you can do, one of the many things that you can do, is start to allow yourself, once you process the emotions and allowed yourself to do some shadow work. And shadow work, if you are not familiar with that, is where you simply just go through a series of various different questions around the issue at hand that allows you to uncover the darkest aspects of the denser frequency, your shadow self, the aspects of you that you haven't been able to look at, the shame or the guilt or the anger or the disgust or the things, the aspects of your psyche or of other people's stuff, right, that you haven't been able to process. So that's what shadow work is. So even after you've done some of the shadow work, then it's your job on a physical level to then ground that into your reality. And you can do that through rituals, right? Inscribing rituals, like vision boarding is a ritual, or, scribing is a ritual. One of the things I like to do is sort of like move myself into that fear, right? And so it's sort of like allowing yourself to test your trigger, right? So whatever that trigger is that puts you back into that state of disappointment, puts you back into a cycle of where you're experiencing the disappointment, allows you to experience that event differently. So when you experience whatever the event is, let's say, I'm just going to use the dating one because that's the one that I just mentioned. Let's say I go out on a new date and I'm not triggered, I'm not going into a state of disappointment or whatever the thing is, then you know that you've neutralized that belief system, because you're no longer operating from this point of unconscious expectation that the shoe is going to drop, right? It's sort of that I'm waiting for the shoe to drop, or I'm waiting for something to go wrong, right? You start operating from this place of wholeness that, of course, my well-being is great. And even if this doesn't work out, then something better is coming. And so when you move from the state of wholeness, you start moving from that place. And so the thing is, it's sort of like reintroducing yourself to, let's say you go on a raw vegan fast or whatever, right? Usually it takes 7 days for your taste buds to readjust, right? Especially if you've been on a fast food, junk food eating binge, and then now you're trying to eat whole and clean, for example, right? It's going to take about 7 days for your taste buds to reacclimate to this new diet, right? Let alone your body to reacclimate and detoxify and all that stuff, right? So it gives you the point I'm trying to make here is that when you're healing from trauma and you're doing the self-care, the shadow work, you have to do the self-care and self-love practices. But what that looks like on a practical level is you're reintroducing yourself to the things that trigger you, to see where you are on a energetic level, and to sort of allow yourself to regulate your emotional body, to regulate your mental body, right, in those moments. And it's sort of like, this is the spiritual practice. So when, for instance, let's say you have a heated relationship with your mother and you don't have a really good relationship, right? And I don't know why this just popped in my mind. Whoever's going to watch this, maybe somebody resonates with this. But let's say you have a heated relationship with your mother, right? And every time you speak to your mother, you feel triggered. Maybe she has narcissistic personality disorder, or she has a way of like making you feel bad about yourself in a way. And instead of, resubjugating yourself to that from a place of feeling triggered and not having worked through your trauma, not having worked through your own stuff, right? What you do is you do the work, you do the shadow work, you do the inner healing, you do the yoga, you feel your emotions. And then the next time you meet your mother, right, when she triggers you, because it will happen, right, you can then self-regulate yourself. So instead of reacting and maybe cussing her out or like shutting down completely, and maybe, whatever your response is, it's usually fight, flight, or flee, right? Where, and the flee aspect is sort of one of the things that my clients have a tendency to do, is especially my empaths out there who aren't like feisty, but they're usually like very quiet and reserved type of people, is that they will have a tendency to shut down. So their nervous system shuts down, or something goes off, and so they sort of self-abandon themselves, right? Where they sort of check out, right? You disassociate from the moment altogether, right? And so instead of having those moments where you're disassociating, right, or where you're checking out, or for the people who are more active rather than passive, where it's sort of like that fight, you're more of a fighter, right? Then in that moment of being triggered, can you regulate your emotions and see, oh, this is me operating out of that loop and that cycle. Me expecting my mom to say something to set me off. Me expecting this to be that. And not to say that you should endure abuse at all. This is not what I'm saying. But I'm saying just an example that when you move yourself into a place of healing the trauma is you're sort of retesting the waters, sort of dipping your toe in the water and regulating your nervous system, right? If you have a fear of being out in public alone, taking yourself out on a date by yourself and in public, and then sort of self-regulating and seeing how you feel in public alone, self-regulating your emotions and reacclimating, doing the shit that's scary, really, helps you to heal that trauma. Because then as you re-regulate your nervous system and re-regulate your body and whatever the situation is, then you start reprogramming your body to get on board and say, it's safe, I am whole, all is well, right? But if you have this program or cyclical loop of disappointment, dissatisfaction, anger, sadness, shutting down, disassociation, whatever the response is that you have to life's events, right? Then you're not able to access your divinity, right? And so it's just doing some of that. I hope that makes sense. That was a very long-winded answer, but yeah. But it's that I've been alone for 10 years, doing a lot of shadow work, but every person I meet stabs me in the back or ghosts me of myself, but I don't understand why it is. That's beautiful. No, I love that you're sharing that. And you're not spamming. I'm just tuning into my higher self on this one. My divine team on this one. Yeah, so the first thing that I got was my divine team is inviting you to release that phrase of every person I meet stabs me in the back or ghosts me, right? Relinquish that altogether, right? So when you play that loop over in your head, that you're giving it that meaning, right? Notice how the spell you just cast just now, just even in the chat, I've been alone for blah, blah, blah. And every time this happens, you're casting that spell, right? Instead of casting that spell, start casting a new spell and start reprogramming your mind. What kind of content are you consuming, right? What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you feeding your subconscious mind on a day-to-day basis? Are you watching, when on your downtime, are you watching love stories where they're always a toxic partner or a backstabbing partner? Make sure that you're feeding your subconscious, whatever you're consuming, thinking, hearing, feeling, seeing, tasting, smelling on a day-to-day basis is now in alignment with a version of you that you want to move into. So relinquish that spell that you cast a new spell, right? So you just cast a spell. I love myself. And that's beautiful. That's a good spell to cast. Now, the rest of the statement that you just had, right, versus every person I meet, blankety blank, right? Instead of every person I meet, what I don't want, say every person that I meet, I find something that I love about them and helps me to expand into more and more greater states of awareness, joy, love, and peace. You can, whatever the phrases that you want, every new person I meet just is so great and loving and kind. It's really amazing how many loving and kind people that I'm meeting on a day-to-day basis or on a week-to-week basis, whatever. Like, you can cast a spell, right? You're casting a spell. And that was one of the things actually I had to learn. Actually, I really resonate with that, because when I was younger, I used to think, oh, I'm such a loner, or it's so hard for me to make friends. And I remember going to my mom when I was little and saying, Mom, it's so hard for me to make friends. Why is it so hard for me to make friends? I was such a loner in high school. And she was like, Rachel, stop saying that. You can make friends. You're a nice person. You're a lovely person. You need to reframe what you're saying, like be mindful of your words, right? I always forget that saying, but no, I don't. I always remember that saying. Be a keeper of your words, right? Be just relentless with how you speak to yourself. Even as you're saying that, right? I do the shadow work, but as soon as you say but, that's sort of you justifying or you fighting for your limitation, right? And you are where you are. Like, just having a self-awareness is the first step to being like, oh, here I am fighting for my limitation. And when you can be like, oh, I'm fighting for a version of myself that I don't want to experience. Remember, you're divine. You're an infinite being. Every version of you that you want to experience in your life already exists within you. So you've just been beating the drum or beating the frequency of the version of yourself that you don't want to be experiencing. So how you get out of that version is start beating the drum of the version of you that you do want to be experiencing, right? Prime example of something that I've mastered a lot in my life is just my health and well-being, right? One of the things I was sharing on my Facebook post earlier was, in 2019, I was still had this large ovarian cyst, and I was showing like on my Facebook profile I was at Carnival dancing up a storm, but I had this big belly and I looked like I was 6 months pregnant, right? But it was literally a large ovarian cyst, right? And I was thinking, damn, like, you know how Facebook shows you like these memories or whatever, because it happened like 5 years ago, right? Of today, right? And I'm looking at myself, I'm like, God, I'm such a completely different person. But it took me to move into the version of I'm already whole, I'm healed, my well-being is assured. And when I moved into that state of being, and I moved into a state of detachment around this cyst, I wasn't going to let it stop me from doing and living my life. Hence why I was at Caribbean Carnival dancing up a storm with my big belly, not giving a damn. And it was that freaking, I think it was that December actually that I healed myself, right? So it was actually that, the end of 2019 is actually when I did heal myself, right? So it's moving into the state of beating the drum of my well-being is assured. Whatever it is that I'm desiring, that version of me exists in the here and now. I just have to start speaking, casting spells in the direction of what I want. Every time you speak something, you are literally waving your magic wand saying, let this be done, right? So why not cast spells towards what you want, right? Versus saying, this always happens. No. You saw me correct myself just now when I said, oh, I always forget. No. I had to retract myself. I do it to myself. I'm still on this learning journey, you guys. I had to recorrect myself. Oh, no, I always remember, right? Or I always get what I want, or I always attract the best, or whatever it is that you're speaking and casting spells, you are creating a reality, and you're creating it by the meaning and the things that you give your life events, right? I told you words have power, right? Exactly. I'm going to have to save and book with you. Oh, you're very welcome. With this, let's get this out. We need to be all elevating our consciousness together. And I hope that this was power and potent, right? Just recognizing that, you're not a victim. To remember who you are is to gather every aspect of yourself into the truth of who you are, right? Remembering who you truly are allows you to move into that state of wholeness, right? And seeing these different aspects of yourself, right? So, as always, flow with what feels good, let go of what doesn't, because you are divine. You're a divine being. And whatever feels good, whatever resonates is the message, is the nugget, is the medicine. Take it in, let it heal you, and utilize it, and then discard the rest, right? Whatever, in this live that resonates, as always. And if you're needing or wanting to book a session, definitely visit me at divineearthschool.com/align for my alignment sessions, or booking a complimentary discovery call for group coaching. This is more in-depth stuff. So my discovery calls are not like coaching calls, but it's more so like a see if this works kind of thing. How can we get you to where you are, and seeing if my services align with that. So if that's something that you're interested in, then book a call with me at divineearthschool.com/call. And then if you want to check out any of my other stuff, courses and classes, divineearthschool.com/classes. Let me just put these in the chat real quick. These should all be in the description box below the video. So let me just copy this right there. So that's the first link. And then second link, and then third link. Okay. Cool. So you guys, as always, remember what you conceive is what you'll receive, what you expect is what you'll get, and however you